What's up, trainers? Welcome back to Trainer Radio. Before we get into the episode, I just want to warn you, if you are listening, there are going to be a few audio issues here during the first segment. We had a few technical difficulties, so we had to bounce back and forth. For those of you watching, you will notice the cuts. But anyways, great conversation ahead. I would love to do a part two with Frank. So as you're listening, think up some questions, leave some comments. Anyways, guys, let's just get into it. Enjoy the episode. What's up, trainers? Welcome back to Trainer Radio. This is episode number 3. Now, we have had a good friend. We've had an influencer on. But the main question I usually get is, yo, Aaron, how do I build a Pokemon deck? So I thought I'd bring on one of the best deck builders in the game, Mr. Frank Percic. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing amazing. That is such a flattering title to have. I really, really appreciate it, and just being able to come on here and talk about my stuff, man.
It's good to have you. All right, so we have a tradition to start out with a fire round. There's going to be 5 questions just to break the ice, get to know you a little better. So I want to know, number 1, what's your favorite Pokemon?
I just tweeted about this, actually, because I get asked this sometimes, and I don't ever have a good answer because I didn't really, I don't know, I just never had like a favorite. I got into the card game just because I liked card games, and I've slowly fallen in love with the franchise. And my favorite Pokemon as of now, current Gen 8, Q-Fant. Best one.
That's a good one. I like that a lot. Yeah.
My favorite.
So do you collect a bunch of the cards of Q-Font yet, or
not yet? Well, there aren't too many, right?
That's
There's
true.
only like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Which I do. I have a bunch of Copperajah cards, actually.
Awesome.
But that might be the thing. We'll see.
Well, then, do you have number 2? Do you have a favorite gen?
4. Oh, 4 for sure. 4 is the best one. I think the use of like the previous like gens, like having evolutions of their like new evolutions, was like so robust in that generation. It was super cool, and that was one of the ones that I really, I don't know, got super into. Like that was like one of the first earlier games. I mean, I had like Emerald and Fire Red and Leaf Green, but I played. I remember like really getting into like Diamond and Pearl like obsessively compared to like all the other games that I played, and so that gen has been like really memorable for me like a lot. And I think that was the first time where I like was old enough to like remember like new Pokemon like coming out for the first time. And so I don't know, this one's like always really special to me, and I just think the Pokemon are like super cool.
Oh yeah, that was a great gen. Now, if you were a gym leader, which type would you be?
I think dark.
Okay.
I don't know. I just like, there aren't a ton of like dark gym leaders, and I just like the like mysterious, like foreboding like aspect that you can get in like as like an aesthetic from that. And I think I like a lot of dark Pokemon. I think are really cool. Like I really like Umbreon and Sableye. And I don't think that reflects me as like my normal, I'm very happy-go-lucky attitude, but at the same time, I think if I could like draw myself into a persona, I think like the dark gym leader would be what I want.
Awesome. I love it. Now, switch things up a little bit. Do you have a favorite item or card or anything in your collection?
Yeah, I actually have it right here. Actually,
cool.
Which is really cool. My now fiance got this for me pretty early on when we started dating, and I've had it ever since. I have the Munch Mimikyu card,
Nice.
which is like apparently it's like worth a bunch right now. It's like really sought after by collectors, from my understanding. And my other favorite card is my top 8 Ultra Ball from Oceania Internationals, which is like my first like trophy card that I got. My only one I really got. That was like a super like one of my favorite tournaments, and such a good time. And I got to be on stream like a bunch that weekend, and I just, even outside the tournament, it was like a lot of good memories with that. So
um, that's definitely my other like prized like collection kind of item.
Cool.
Right.
Technology. We are back, guys. Some technical difficulties, but we are on question number 5. Tell us the time you dropped the Pokeball, or yeah, had a hardship failure along your journey.
Oh, dude, like so many different tournaments, honestly. Like I top 8 of that tournament I was just talking about, I really made well, I don't know, just a questionable play that ended up costing me the game. And like
Mhm.
I've been on stream so many times where I've just like absolutely choked, even when
No.
people didn't notice it. Like my most recent, the last in-person regionals actually, in Collinsville, I like played a really exciting series, but in the early rounds, like based on just the strategy of the deck, I absolutely like dropped the ball and like grabbed the wrong cards. And like only my one friend who was playing the deck with me and knew like how to pilot it really well, like, was like noticed it because it was just like one of those things that like you wouldn't really know unless you put a bunch of time in with the deck. And so
Uh,
um a lot of, I think that's what kind of speaks to me as like a deck builder is, I guess a lot of my skill and success comes in having unique ideas and being able to build decks and being a little sloppier on the gameplay side. So definitely a lot of like just technical, like specific gameplay stuff like that. I've dropped the ball quite a few times.
that actually feeds into one of my first questions, the end of my first question, which is like, I'll just skip to the last part of it. What are some of your proudest decks actually going on from that you've built?
I actually have a lot of decks that I'm super proud of. Um, and anytime like this question comes up or people like ask about like a time you've played like a weird deck or a unique deck or something you spent a lot of time on, I always like have like the laundry list. To name a couple, probably my favorite is one that I played at the second most recent in-person tournament, which was Dallas Regionals Expanded. Um,
Mhm.
it was Giratina Garchomp with Roxy in it, and I got 13th place with it. And then another one of my friends who helped with the deck, Hunter Butler, he won the tournament with it.
Awesome.
And that was just like the best feeling is that we just like, and a bunch of us played it, and everybody that played it did like extremely well, and it was just like really like a story point of like that event in general. So that I was super proud of that. Um,
Mm.
and then I think another one that I really like a lot is I played, and I had a lot of help with this deck as well. But I was the only one that ended up playing it. It was Giratina EX with Malamar that I played for a tournament. It was
Mm.
like Roanoke expanded like really late in the 2017 2018 season, I
Hmm.
think. And that deck I loved a lot, and it was so unique and it did so well, and it was like the first time set was legal, and just something that was like completely out of left field, and kind of like really I feel like that was like the first stepping stone for me as like somebody who was known as like a deck builder or like a unique, you know, rogue deck kind of player like in the TCG. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me too. And that was just such a fun tournament. It was such a fun deck to play too. That's the other thing about all these decks that are really fun. And then another one, probably my other favorite deck was Stunfisk Spiritomb that was
Okay.
Hunter and I both played again. It was just the two of us. Played it for the NAIC in 2019, I want to say, for the North American International Championships, and he got top 8 with it, and I
Awesome.
unfortunately did not do as well. But um, that was I love that one because we literally like locked ourselves in my fiance's apartment like while she
Uh-huh.
had class and just like I was done. I had graduated, and she was in class for the summer, and Hunter was like visiting for that tournament and for Origins, which was also in Columbus like the week before, and so we just like spent like 2 weeks together, like just doing all these tournaments and like playing Pokemon like all day, and just like we're like literally like locked ourselves like in the lab, and just the two of us like came out eventually with this like creation that ended up doing like super well, and was just like a super fun time, and to see him like make top 8 with it and get to be on the big NAIC stage was just amazing.
That is
That deck
awesome.
was awesome. Also,
So
super super fun deck if you've ever seen it.
I'll have to check that one out. I remember the Giratina one. I definitely remember that one, but I have to go check out this newest one you just talked about. But I'm going to go into like I was going to ask you about your origins, but I'm actually going to slip a listener question in right here because I think it fits well with what you were just talking about, like when you how you approach like going into the lab. And he's like, when you sit down to his question is basically when you sit down. This is Duelist X. To build a deck for a tournament, or are you always looking like to build like the most consistent deck that's kind of been proven over time, or do you personally try to find that like off deck that just comes in and can surprise everybody and beat everybody?
I definitely like to use the surprise factor as much as I can to my advantage for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but there's definitely like a limit that there's like a cost to that, and there's like you definitely have to weigh the odds of doing that, and like each deck that I have played that has been like a huge surprise has
Mm-hmm.
definitely it's been the correct time to do that. And so what I mean when I say that is like maybe like a new set has come out, or
Mm.
rotation has happened, and it's not a very it's there's more fluidity in deck
Okay.
building at that moment in time. And it's like most of those tournaments that I mentioned, a set was like legal for the first time in tournament play. And even though they're like months ahead of time to like prepare for the tournament, and like you can speculate online of like what people are going to play and what's going to do good,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of the time that's a big factor. And the other thing too is you have to know like when your idea just isn't good. I don't want to say good, but just like isn't it's too off brand. Like there's
Mm.
still, things that the deck should be doing, or problems that it should be tackling, or check, benchmarks that it should meet, for
Mm-hmm.
you to be able to play it. And so I think going into a tournament, a lot of the time I will have like my like backup play ready, or just like my straightforward consistent, like I know this deck is good off the bat play like ready, and I'll know how to play that really well first.
Mm.
And then after I feel comfortable, I'll start exploring like unique ideas, and either they come to life or they don't sometimes.
Okay, awesome. Now you mentioned benchmarks. Would you mind maybe elaborating or giving the listeners maybe a hint of what those may be when you're like looking for a tournament deck?
Yeah, I think the first thing, I definitely have like I have a formula. I have like a very like strict process, honestly. And
Okay.
there it goes from, it starts out, everything is like just an idea.
Mm.
Before a deck is even made, it's just like a concept, or like a just one small mechanic that ends up growing into something different. But you
Okay.
have to like identify, is this viable? And so like I'll use a good example of a deck that I've thought a lot about is Malamar VMAX. I'll use current cards for everybody listening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like Malamar VMAX is something I've thought a lot about, and you know, it's a good card. It has a good effect. It does a good amount of damage. I think 180 is like really good right now because everything in this format is attacking twice to take a knockout anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the biggest thing is like the energy requirement. And so I've thought about a lot of ways to charge that up, whether it be Rose, and you play Rose Tower and Sylvally GX
Mm-hmm.
from Cosmic Eclipse,
I think
and
so. Yeah.
uh, I've thought about trying like Turbo Patch and charging it up before you evolve it that way. And in my brain, before I even know anything about any other cards that you would put into the deck, I have like determined that just won't be enough. Like it won't just be based on the format, and like Eternatus VMAX being able to attack turn two, or um, like ADP really being able to seal the turn in 4 games. It's just not, I think, something that can survive like right now. And so that goes to the back of my brain. And so like once it makes it past that, like an idea, or like a some sort of function, like some sort of mechanic of the game can make it like past that, then you start like we'll start like building a deck out of it. And so then I'll just take like a big block of clay and I'll type out like just like an 80 card deck list, or just like every single card that I would ever want to play in this deck I'll put in a big fat deck list, and then I'll just chisel away at it like slowly, or not slowly, but I'll just like then I'll start to chisel away at it. So it's like I'll
Okay.
put every card I want in this deck, and it's like 70 cards, right? And then I'm like, all right, we gotta get rid of 10 of these.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of like chip it down into this list,
Okay.
and then once that is done, and that's like a huge process, like just to get to that point. And a lot of decks can make it there, and then I'm on PTCGO, or I'm on testing in person. I've sleeved up the deck, and then it's like you have to meet the benchmark. You have to be able to like convincingly beat whatever you probably think the most popular and the best decks are in the format. So like if you're trying to build a deck for this current format right now, you should be able to like very convincingly beat ADP and very convincingly beat Eternatus VMAX. Should be like
Okay.
the main prerogative of your deck, because in a tournament play, like those are the two decks that you probably see the most play and the most success. So like once you beat those, like once you can reach those benchmarks, you can move forward to like other things. But a lot of the time, like if I can't do that, it's just like understanding, okay, why are we not beating this deck, or why are we not, winning this percent of the time, or why is the deck not getting set up right, or whatever problem you're having, and then you just go into the 60 cards you had and swap some things around, chisel it, add some clay back where you took it out, and chisel around some other stuff, right?
I love
And
it.
or sometimes that takes like combining other ideas you have, or completely like switching the engine up. Like I know one deck that recently myself and the team that I recently came on Undaunted put out was this ADP, or not ADP, this greens bird trio deck with the Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres from Hidden Fates. And that started out as a deck that played like Jirachi and a bunch of ability based Pokemon, and it like wouldn't work. It like just wasn't working. Like the bench, didn't have enough bench space, and the Dedenes and the Crobats in the deck were too vulnerable, and and they were taking like 6 prizes too easily, and so we noticed like a lot of these flaws, and ended up changing like the whole kind of, like we kept some mechanics. Like the reason we built the deck was because the GX attack on the bird trio we wanted to utilize for reasons that I can go into further maybe a bit later, but we just kept this like core idea, this core mechanic that we knew was good, and then just like changed everything else around it to make it like fit our prerogative, or make it like to fix the flaws that it was having, and then it turned into this completely different greens deck. And so just being able to like fix other parts of your deck, or just like build around like this one good idea, and then just make it all the other puzzle pieces like fit in kind of where they need to go, or with the rest of the format or the meta, is kind of like how this next step, right? And getting it, once you get it to beat those two decks, and then after that, or not those two, like those two decks now, it's because it's Eternus and ADP, or whatever deck you're looking to beat. And so once you're able to do that, you reach that benchmark, then it comes down to like fine tuning it to be as consistent as possible, or to beat the like less popular decks, or really to exploit its flaws as little as possible, and kind of pick and choose where you take your losses, right? Because no deck is perfect, but you just want to like mitigate the negative aspect of it the most. And so for instance, like if my deck loses to anything, I want it to be what I think is going to be the least popular, and even then it's like shaping it around that, because you can only fit 60 cards in a deck, and so you're going to have to take a loss somewhere, and so just like forcing it to be in the statistically least like likely area in like a large tournament is kind of like what you do. And that's, it varies speed run of how a deck gets built, but those are the kind of steps and like the formula that I really go through when it comes to like making a deck.
That's awesome. No, there's so much information that even like I haven't even thought of before that like I'm thoroughly like enjoying this. Um, Now you have your deck concept, you have your 60, 70 cards. Now could you go into like how you start to play that, test that? I know you mentioned like you pick some of like the main decks from the current format, but I feel like play testing, at least in like the beginner and intermediate levels, more casual players throw around play testing as like, hey, I want to grab my deck and sit down and play a few games, because like I've used it that way. But what actually is play testing? Like, how do you get from
And
those
oh
60,
yeah,
70? Mm-hmm.
that's a great question. And if we're in like hyper serious, like there's a tournament coming up in 5 days, and I need this deck to work, like
Mm-hmm.
where we'll put in like hours against like one, like there have been times where I put in like hours and hours and hours against a deck that we like maybe thought we were going to see like one time during the tournament, like if that. And so like you definitely, the first thing, like you said, like we've talked about, is making sure you can beat whatever's going to be the most popular. Like if you expect to see a deck is going to be like, you know 25, 30, 40, 50% of what you're going to see like during the day,
Mm-hmm.
you should have played you I'm going to play enough games against that deck until my deck like convincingly wins like almost every time, and I will
Okay.
fine tune and tinker around until it can perfectly beat those big decks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to like, expand our circle a little bit, right? Then we start to like figure out those other decks, and it's like, all right, well, what can and can't we beat? Like, how often do we beat these decks versus how often we're going to see them? And then, like, okay, should I make, this sacrifice to lose to like the big popular deck, or not to lose, sorry, to do like slightly worse against the big popular deck,
Mm-hmm.
but still probably like if I'm going to beat like the super popular deck like 90% of the time, but I lose to this deck, should I like change this around and I can beat this other deck that's like 50% of the time, and then take my big, popular deck from 90 to 85%? And you just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
make those judgments and make those calls, and like, make figure out like really just like how you can balance the scales in the best possible way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that comes down to like as you slowly expand your circle of things that you're prepared for, then you just balance the scales at that point with like inclusions and stuff like that. And sometimes, like sometimes it's like you play so many games against all these decks, like it's like a one card difference. Like sometimes it's like I'll use like Tool Scrapper as an example. It's like, okay, like we've played this deck like 50 times, and it's like if you are able to like Tool Scrapper this tool off, then the matchup becomes like slightly good enough to where you can win 50% of the time, but it means you have to take out this consistent like this quick ball or whatever, and that means we might not set up as good, or we have to take out this like um card that makes the Eternatus VMAX matchup like slightly less good. But it's you just figure that out eventually, like as you finally build your like puzzle, and really like find like that perfect balance like we're talking about.
Awesome. And that actually feeds in perfectly to another question I had from the community. I was going to do these at the end, but they're kind of feeding in right here. Um, when do you make that choice then between, or maybe the personal preference? Let's talk about it. So for you specifically, do you always choose the 60 deck 60 card deck perfect consistency, or do you do like the 58 card like consistency with like the two spicy or however many spicy techs in there?
I think like it depends on the tournament. Like,
Okay.
so I'll use like the play system, the in-person play system, not the online what we have going on now, but like
Mm-hmm.
League Challenge, like League Cup, like local style tournaments, max consistency, right? You're in
Okay.
best of one.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to just win by being just playing better than my opponents, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
because whereas like in a regional, I might play like some of all of the best players in the world, right? I need some sort of edge because if I'm playing like perfectly and my opponent is playing perfectly, and we're playing best of three, which is like even just more. There's less room for sorry, there's more room for error. Like in a best of one, if you just like don't set up consistently, like and you just lose that best of one, that sucks. But you have best of three to like let your deck shine. So you can afford to be a little flimsier and sometimes and oftentimes actually that's like the best thing because you want to edge out your opponents in ways that aren't just by play because you can expect in high rounds of like a large tournament that people are flying in for to just everybody is going to play perfectly after a certain point. So um, you want to use those techs to really edge out your opponent, right?
Now, let's dial it back to like somebody who's coming in, maybe their first year of playing, because I know like from my community, we have a lot of those players. They're new, they're coming in, they've liked collecting the cards, but they want to try playing. How do you get from just playing with starter decks to kind of entering your first tournament? How do you go like preparing, playing? Like, how do you become a better player?
Definitely a lot of practice. That's so cheesy.
Mm.
I think definitely the first step is just learning about the game in general and like the current, I think like what everybody refers to as the meta game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing like what all the cards do, right? Every popular card. Like I literally like I don't read the card. Like I just see the picture of the card and I like know what it does. Like if you ask me
Mm-hmm.
to like recite text on a card, like I literally could not, but I can tell you exactly how much damage it does and how much energy it costs and
Yeah.
what essentially like the ability does. Because I just like you gain that knowledge. Like you should have this library of
Mm.
card knowledge like in your head of at least of what the like popular cards do, right? So like
Right.
Eternatus VMAX, knowing like what that does, and Crobat and Dedenne and all these like popular card, professors research, just knowing and as soon as you see the card, like what it does and where it belongs in the deck, and then sort of past that is like once you have this collective library of knowledge of just individual cards,
Mm.
learning like what decks are popular, and like what decks get played by these top players, and not only that, but also like what a lot of these decks looks like, because at the same time like one archetype is probably going to be like 90-95% similar to all the other versions of that deck, right? Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? And so
Yeah.
I know an Eternatus VMAX deck has 3 or 4 Eternatus VE, 3 Eternatus VMAX, 4 Crobat, um, 4 Quick Ball, um, 4 Professor's Research. What else do people? Sometimes people will put in like Hoopa or Yveltal, um, and let's say like let me think of another popular. Or yeah, Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, Zacian. I know they play 2 Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, 2 Water Energy, 8 Metal Energy most of the time. 4 Quick Ball. Um, did some other card like different? Like some will play like 2 Crobat, 1 Dedenne, or to like 2 Dedenne, 1 Crobat. Or just those like small minute changes. But just knowing like overall, like again, 90% of the deck is going to be similar across the board. So just knowing um, what decks are going to be popular and what like cards they consist of is a
Mm-hmm.
good way to like understand like how to really get into the card game, because then you can kind of like pick and choose between which deck you like, and when you're playing your opponent, you kind of know what to like expect from them,
Mm.
and kind of understanding this like subgroup of cards and of decks that will like envelop you if you get really really into the competitive card game.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I think that's the first step, and there are a lot of great resources to do that. I find
Yeah.
I, as somebody who considers themselves very knowledgeable about the game at most points in time, still use like online, like Limitless TCG is like a site that I use, and
Mm.
even like Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. I'll just like go to other top players and see like what decks are they playing, or like how did they build this deck, or did they like change anything, or like what's trending right now, and like tournament results, like a lot of them get posted to like PokeStats is a great ptcgstats.com, another great resource for like tournament results, as well as limitlesstcg.com. So just like utilizing these resources and just like gaining this like collective knowledge of cards and decks and what go in them, and
Awesome.
I think is like the first step, and you'll kind of start to understand, and obviously putting in time with the decks and against those decks, right? And really narrowing your field of what you become knowledgeable on to stuff that is relevant to competitive play.
Now, when you first started, I want to talk about like your origins and stuff. Like, did you play other TCGs before? So when you came in, you kind of knew or figured out how to get good fast, or what was good, what was not? Because like oftentimes I find somebody that's like, I want to be competitive, I want to build a deck with X card, and we all know that X card is not a good card, so like how do you break into that and like start to know what's good, and maybe go into some of your origins of the Pokemon trading card game?
So I started playing November 2016.
Okay.
And so that was like right, that 2016 2017 season was when Pokemon had like a huge boom, because they had just funneled a lot of money into their tournaments, right? You could get $5,000 for winning a regional, whereas before you'd get 3 booster boxes.
Right.
And so they and the other thing is like they would have all of the regionals tournaments, and like all of the tournaments would be like on the same weekend in different areas, whereas now they're like, people are flying across the country for them, and there's like each one has its own special weekend, and you just draw in like the thousands, up to like 1,000 plus players from all different parts of the country, which was like super new. And so it was really nice to be inducted with as a player like into this new era that Pokemon really started.
That's awesome.
And so it was like I got to grow like as the game was growing, which was super, super great time to come in. So I was really fortunate in that aspect. And I had played before. I had collected cards like just as a child, and like I tried to be competitive like in the Diamond and Pearl era, but not something that like my parents were super into, and it wasn't something I was very good at, really. I didn't understand it. I would just like play like a theme deck or whatever. But I knew the rules. And that was it. But I knew I'm a very, very hyper competitive person. I love like sports, and I used to be really into yo-yoing, and I used to do like yo-yo competitions.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
everything that I do, like I like to take it to as far as it can go, and I'm like
Okay.
a very competitive person. And so I was like super interested in the card game, and I would just watch on YouTube. I would like study and learn like what the cards did before I even touched a card. Like 2014-15, I was watching like YouTube videos from the Top Cut, and I didn't
Awesome.
start playing until like I didn't start playing until like late 2016. And so I just had this general interest around it. And I played Hearthstone because it was like free and on my computer,
Cool.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas this was like a big like in a kind of investment and a time investment, and you had to get like physical cards, and um, that's a lot bigger of a deal. It's like figuring that stuff out. But I finally like pulled the trigger, and I was like, this is something I want to do. And I wanted to do it right. I wanted to be very competitive with it, like right from the jump, which I think is different from like how a lot of people get into it. But this is for me, who wanted to be competitive like from day one. And so I actually like was looking at previous tournament results, and I saw that the first regional of the season was won by Azul Grego Garcia playing Yveltal Garbodor in Florida.
Okay.
And that there was a regional coming up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which was like 3 hours from me, which not too far. And so I was like, I'm gonna start playing. I went to the Play Pokemon site and found like challenges near me, league challenges, and cups hadn't started yet. There hadn't been a single league cup yet. But I like I built my own version of the Yveltal deck, which I thought was like, oh, this would be better, but terrible idea. Just like if you're just starting, just like find like what deck just like is the best deck, and
Uh-huh.
just build it card for card and
Okay.
learn on that.
Yep.
And then like once you have this like more like once you have this breadth of knowledge, and once you can think about the game um more as like a conceptually as like black and white, then I think you can start playing around with stuff like that. But definitely, like when if you're first starting out, like really competitive play, just like copy like what is number one, or number two or number three, whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
ask people around you who have been playing for a while, like why is this card, just like trying to understand like, well, why is this card good, or like why should I play this card instead of this card, and
Mm-hmm.
people in the Pokemon community are very apt to helping you. But back to my story, I
Yeah.
played this version instead of Yveltal Garbodor, I played Yveltal Zoroark Break, which was not as good at all. And
Okay.
it played, because I couldn't turn off abilities with Garbodor, I played like Triple Hex Maniac, which was also not amazing because your supporter for the turn should definitely draw you cards a lot of the time
Yeah.
in the Pokemon TCG. Um, but I still brought it to a couple league challenges and just played it. It was nice. It was just competitive enough that I could like beat people, because it was still like you've
Yeah.
also EX was like the best card in the format for like years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ended up going to that regional, and I actually got super lucky because I did meet somebody, Audubon Blendrin, who really good player, top 8 regional with Glaceon. I think just Glaceon in
Mm.
standard when that was in format, and has also really inspired me to build a lot of decks, as he, I think, as like my mentor in Pokemon very early on, also
Mm.
built a lot of really cool decks. But he and I met, and we went to school together. We went to the same college,
Awesome.
and just kind of, it was crazy. And I just saw him at this Pokemon tournament. I'm like, do you go to like the school that we go to? And he's like, yeah, man. Like, what's up? I
Yeah.
know who you are. And I was like, no way. And I just like lucked. I was so fortunate. Not only like the timing, like I was saying, of like this new era of Pokemon being ushered in, but
Mm-hmm.
also that I met somebody who like really knew what they were doing and was able to just like help me immensely. He's like, all right, it's like just and kind of told me the same thing I'm preaching now. Is just like, this deck won the tournament. Like, just build it. Like, take these cards out of your deck, put these cards in, and just like
Mm-hmm.
even showed me like, okay, like this deck's kind of good, and you'll need this card to build those decks, and here's like you can find deck lists like here, and follow this person on Twitter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um and so that was like super super helpful, and I think now compared to then, there are a lot more tools to get that
Yeah.
done. But at the same time, just being able to surround myself with, because he introduced me to a lot of great people as well, like in the Northeast Ohio, Pokemon scene. And so
Mm-hmm.
just being able to surround myself with people who are more knowledgeable than I was at the time, like really helped accelerate my understanding of the game. Yeah,
That,
it
what a
was.
cool story. Like, I mean,
It's even, sorry to
no,
interrupt.
no.
It gets crazier too, because like I started meeting like really really high profile players like really quickly. I like
Yeah.
remember, and so in North, I a really longtime friend, and somebody I used to play with every weekend and like all the time, was Andrew Mahone, who's like one of the best Pokemon players of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would go to his apartment like every single weekend and just play games, and he was somebody I got to be really good friends with really early on, and he introduced me to people like Jimmy Pendarvis, who introduced me to um, some other people, and I ended up making really good friends with Travis Nunlist, who had like top poured like 3 regionals that season or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, and then like coincidentally enough, I moved to California that summer of that season, and made really good friendship with Finnegan Lynch, who's also like a high profile player. We actually like played each other in a league cup and got like first and second, and just like had some really good games and like hit it off. And um so just like being able to like meet like this wealth of people. I remember my second regional was in somewhere in California. I think Jimmy Pendarvis convinced me to like fly to California after playing Pokemon for like 3 months and enter this regional. But I met like that's where I met like Travis, who introduced me to players like Sam Chen, Rahul Reddy, a bunch of people like that, and just like I now like really like felt comfortable like talking to these people and asking for advice and stuff like that and being cordial with them, and that was like so nice. And it really really helped me grow as a player. And I still was mostly testing with like Mahone and Jimmy a little bit when he would come from like Virginia at the time and come visit, but just like having all these people at least like to like observe even or just like be around like just helped it like a ton. And also like really good friends like Travis and I like oh my gosh, he's such a good friend of mine. And I remember just like meeting him and just being like hitting it off like so early on, and we played like so many cool decks together and just have like had so many good chats and conversations and built like a lot of like really good friendships, just through people in general, even outside of Pokemon. And
Yeah.
so that was like really really fortunate for me personally. But I just
I
got super lucky in so many different aspects.
Yeah. No, I love hearing this story because it was like the same for me meeting you and some of these players when I like after the Trainer TV days when I like went up and was part of Dead Raw for a while and all that stuff. But like I got to meet you and I was like, oh, he's the deck builder. Like I knew your name. And then like the one I really remember is Azul, because like I was just so afraid not to piss off Dead Drop people. So I was just like trying to act whatever. So Azul's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And then like I stopped talking and then kind of walked away with like Darren or somebody. And I was just like, was I just rude to Azul? Was I being rude? So like, I don't know. And then like
It's like
meeting him and all you guys was crazy. Yeah.
it's like so crazy to like think about too. And one person I hung out with a lot before anybody knew who I was Igor Costa, who
Mm.
like, and like I would like walk around, and same thing with Andrew too. It's like I would walk around and hang out with these people, and like they would just get stopped, and like people would talk to them, and just like it was like starstruck, like they were meeting like a celebrity, which I think is so crazy because like in this like in this space of like Pokemon trading card game, right? Like in this sub group of people, like you really are like an A-list celebrity. But then
Yeah.
like when you think about things like just the bigger like think of like the rest of the world, right? I mean, they're just like just normal dude. Like
Right.
same thing with me. I like go to work, like have a job, like just live my normal life. But like to some people, I think, and same thing with like Azul and Mahone and Igor and all these people. It's just like at the end of the day, they're just like just a normal dude.
Yep.
And even me like meeting them for the first time like had the same expression, and then you really get to like hang out with these people and know them, and it's like I can't believe I like gawked over this person at one point who I'm now just like I could like when you talk about stuff like outside the context of Pokemon, it's just like there's no leverage, or like there's no like difference of who you are as a person. And I think that's like once you get past that, it's like pretty, I don't know, eye-opening and pretty funny. Like I laugh on it sometimes now.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a lot of people think of that, I guess, just because they are so, I guess, like their circle, I guess, in Pokemon, wasn't as fortunate enough as myself, who got to like really expand and get in, in the good graces of these people very early.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's just crazy to me. Like, and I'm always try to be as friendly as possible. And if you see me in a tournament or whatever, hopefully in the future, fingers crossed,
Yeah.
always come up, say hi. Like everybody is just, I'm just like try to be as down to earth as possible. And if you message me on Twitter or whatever, I try and answer everybody and talk to everybody. 'Cause at the end of the day, like I'm nobody special.
No, I second that, guys. If you see Frank at a tournament, go say hi. Also, you are one of the best people to come across at any tournament because your wheels are spinning right before the tournament of like which deck, and like you're throwing out all these ideas, and it's so fun to just watch you and the group like bouncing back and forth. Like, but what if we do this and what if we do that? And it's like, yeah, guys, again, go say hi to Frank and yeah, ask him if your deck's good.
Yeah. No, I think the funnest place to be at a tournament is the night before it starts,
Mhm.
in the hotel room of like a couple like high profile players just like testing games at like 11 p.m., like 1 in the morning, of just like
Right.
slinging back ideas. It's like, we just spent 2 hours in a heated debate over whether this deck needs 10 energy or 11 energy, and just like watching that and observing that, and like there's somebody in the background like trying to sleep, or like it's just it is a scene for sure if you ever get to experience that.
It's so true. And like I'll say from my experience, because like I'm thinking about it, but I've never been like a truly competitive player. Um, I don't know if I really want to go that route yet, but many of us who like listen to you guys on these podcasts, try to emulate that same thing. So I remember me sitting with pure beginners, my friends at these regionals as well, just be like, we need to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning playing our deck. We all know it really doesn't matter because we're not going very far anyways, but it's just fun. It's just part of it.
I really, really miss going to tournaments in person. Not even so much for the competitive aspect, it's just solely for like the essence of it, and like the environment that you're in is just like this place like no other. And I love that about Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So you've had these accomplishments with your decks. Is there anything still like on the Pokemon bucket list as far as either deck building wise or accomplishments that you definitely want to get after and hit?
Oh, 100%. I want a trophy. I want my first place plaque, or even top 4 at this point would be fine. I want some hardware, I want a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more of that for sure. A little more placements.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would love to have I want a world championship deck. I don't care if I win the tournament, if I win the tournament, I want my deck to be printed by that, like, would be a dream. And it's something that I can achieve like on my own, right? Like, I can just
Mm-hmm.
go to this tournament and do well. It's like something I have to like it's a very attainable goal, and one that has like a very structured like way to reach it, and something that relies on me like being the best, right? And so
Right.
that's something.
I think you have given us on this podcast an awesome roadmap, and I'd love to have you on again, maybe a part 2. Hopefully, we'll get a flood of questions from this one of like, what's next, the next step, and yeah, where can the listeners find you and engage with your journey?
Yeah, you can. I always plug my Twitter. Follow me at Percic. That is like where I make jokes sometimes, and I tweet out like if I'm ever working on anything. We'll go out there, and sometimes I'll just definitely spit some knowledge, for sure. So follow me there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with the newest project that I've kind of helped bring to life, Undaunted. So you can follow them on Twitter, UNDNTD,
Okay.
Undaunted. And then I'm in the works of making our YouTube channel and Twitch and some other projects, but still getting those up off the ground. But definitely check us out on Twitter to just stay updated. And a lot of my efforts are going to go towards that. So definitely give that a follow.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, go check it out. I'll have all the links in the description or the show notes if you're listening. Again, Frank, thank you very much for coming on, and we'd love to have you back at some point. But till then, guys, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Train on.